where are we at? Is it a 50-50 chance that we get a Brexit deal, or is it a much smaller chance than that?
Well, there is still the possibility and the chance that an agreement will be reached, but I think it is fair to say that it's very evenly balanced at the moment. President von der Leyen updated the heads of government in the European Union on where the negotiations stand, Francine, and all of the governments of the European Union are completely behind the Commission and our negotiation team in the Commission, and will be supporting their efforts in the coming days to see if an agreement is possible. I believe it is possible, but we cannot underestimate the difficulties in reaching agreement, or indeed the consequences if agreement cannot be reached.
Could talks actually drag on to next year?
Oh, I think the fact that we saw a deadline set for Sunday, and the fact that the President of the Commission met Prime Minister Johnson earlier on in the week, is the sign of the need for negotiations to conclude promptly and urgently, in order for example, countries to know where they will stand from a trading point of view with the United Kingdom. It's so important for businesses in Ireland, in Europe, and indeed in the UK to know what the trading relationship will look like in early next year. So while it's possible, and I'd expect that there will be some areas of discussion that will still continue for a while, the core features of what the future trading agreement need to look like between the EU and the UK do need to be concluded soon.
Paschal, Tom Keane in New York, good morning to you, sir. As you know, as Ireland,
good morning, Tom.
Northern Ireland and the United Kingdom have lived, it has been centuries of the delicate balance of trust. Give us the trust meter right now as these negotiations continue. What do you observe about the development of a constructive trust that can lead to a constructive outcome?
Well, Tom, you will know that in the rhythm of negotiations, and particularly negotiations that are so charged, that issues of trust and relationship still and always do come under pressure at this point in such a serious engagement. But from my engagement with our negotiators in the European Union, there is still trust from the European Union that an agreement can be reached. I expect the same is there from the United Kingdom. And the reason why that trust is there does go back actually to the question that you posed to me. And I heard the earlier question about history that you put to Mr. Trichet. And the history is of relations between the United Kingdom and Europe and Ireland that in recent decades have been so transformed and made so different due to our membership of the European Union. And that is the context for this negotiation. We may be neighbours by geography, but we have become allies because of choices that have been made over values that are informed by our shared history. And in the changing world that you're well aware of, the European Union, Ireland and the United Kingdom still have far more in common than we might have that is differing at the moment. So for all those reasons, trust will continue to be there to find an agreement. But of course, the atmosphere will be charged, I'm sure, and know it will be difficult. But that just reflects the historic nature of the negotiations that are underway.
Based on what you know now, after the tumult of the last number of days, what will the border between Northern Ireland and Ireland look like?
Well, of course, due to the agreement that was reached between the European Commission and the British government earlier on in the week in relation to a Northern Ireland protocol, it is the case that due to that agreement, we will be able to protect the peace process, which the governments of Ireland, of the United Kingdom and the European Union are so committed to. And I now have increased confidence that we will be able to manage trade and movement across the border due to the protocol. So because of that agreement being reached earlier on in the week, in many, if not all, of the scenarios that we might have to deal with in the future, we will still be able to allow movement across the border in the way very similar to what it is at the moment, and critically we'll be able to maintain the political and economic atmosphere around the border, which is such a hugely important factor in maintaining peace and stability on the island of Ireland.
Minister, does Brexit and COVID harden the case for a proper EU financial market? And where are we on banking union? Will we have something concrete and comprehensive soon?
I think, Francine, that is an important point. The context has changed in our debates on banking union and capital markets union within the European Union. It has changed because of Brexit. It has changed because of the consequences of COVID. And that is, I believe, appreciated by the finance ministers of the euro area in particular. We know that in order to protect and secure those who we serve, the people and the citizens of Europe, we do need to have new sources of funding, new sources of investment, and a more resilient and diverse financial architecture for the European Union. So one thing has happened, another thing will happen. The first thing is that changed background fed into the agreement that we reached in the Eurogroup in regard to a stronger role for the European Stability Mechanism and bringing forward important safeguards for banks in Europe. And then secondly, the European Council asked me to report back to them by next summer on what areas we believe we can make further progress on in banking union. So that is what has happened, and that is what will happen across the first half of 2021.
Yeah, and the ESM reform is absolutely crucial, but now comes the even harder work of, sovereigns letting go a little bit of their financial institutions. Do you see that headed? Do you see, do countries understand what needs to happen next?
Well, countries, I believe, do understand the need for further change, but it's fair to say that there are also very strong national issues that have formed the backdrop to these discussions in the past that haven't gone away. So further progress in banking union is going to be very complex and is actually going to be very, very difficult. But my fellow finance ministers do know that the context for these negotiations has changed, and we have recommitted ourselves to seeing how or if further progress is possible. And that will be particularly important in the first half of next year.